Hey y'all, my name is Cassie and I am the creator of Pieces of Scrap, and today we're going to be doing another free amigurumi pattern review video. But this pattern review video will be different because we're not testing Instagram patterns, we're testing Pinterest patterns. And I know that Pinterest patterns, you can get a pattern that comes up from Instagram, but I'm specifically avoiding those patterns to use for Instagram review videos. These are patterns that get shared from blogs and websites from the pattern creator, and they get shared to Pinterest that way instead of getting sourced from Instagram. First up, I wanted to go over how I review my patterns for people who aren't familiar with these videos. The first thing that I judge patterns on is if I would use the pattern again. I like to find patterns that I can use for market prep, so pretty quick patterns that work up, but also patterns that create something that I really like the end product. The second thing that I factor into my rating is, can I understand the pattern easily? This is a huge point. If I am stumbling over instructions in the pattern and have to redo that part over and over again, I'm more likely to rate the pattern lower because it wasn't tested and tried for those errors that might come up for somebody doing the pattern for the first time. And the third thing that I factor in when I rate my patterns is, do I like the finished product? If I don't like the finished product, I'm gonna rate the pattern lower. First pattern that I reviewed is this Winnie the Pooh pattern by Wonder Crochet. I used this pattern for a commission that I got for Christmas. Got the commission and they said they wanted it to be a stocking stuffer, so this is more along the lines of the size that it came out being. I've already given this finished commission to the person who requested the commission, so I don't have the finished product, so I ended up just making this one really quick to refresh myself on the pattern to do this pattern review video. So I've got this size and this size. The first time that I made the pattern, I ended up making it way too big. This is using Bernat blanket yarn and the shirt is Premier Parfait. This one I worked up using Bernat velvet yarn, so it came out a lot smaller, which is what I intended it for it to look like. And the biggest thing here is, because I had to work up using a different yarn, I didn't want to use this much smaller weight yarn to directly crochet the shirt onto the body like it is here. So instead I had to kind of improvise this shirt. It's not even attached to the bear, so it's like you could take it off if you really wanted to. So yeah, I ended up kind of improvising on that part. But this ended up being way too big to give as the commission because she wanted a stocking stuffer, so I ended up keeping this one. I'll probably end up selling it on a market. That being said, this pattern took me 1 hour and 48 minutes to work up. It's much faster with the changes I made to the pattern to kind of make it easier for myself, because the original pattern does not have no-sew arms. You have to sew on the arms separately, you sew on the head separately, you sew on the ears and the muzzle separately. Everything you have to sew on except the legs up to the body to where the neck is. That's all worked in one piece, but everything else is separate pieces. So for this, I ended up working them all as separate pieces again. But instead of needing to sew on the arms, I just worked these arms directly into the row. The thing that I don't really like about this pattern is how much sewing is involved, so that's kind of why I decided to do some no-sew arms for this. I kind of adapted the pattern to meet my needs. But anyway, this video isn't about how I would improve the pattern, it's how I rate this current pattern. The only thing I really didn't like about this pattern is just the amount of sewing, like I said, so I would rate this pattern 3.5 stars out of 5. The next pattern that I reviewed was this Flamingo by Sweet Softies. I really adore how cute this flamingo is with its little dangly legs. He can dangle off the side of a table or dresser or whatever you want. Mine's a little lopsided, so he doesn't want to stand up on the first try, but he does stand up on his own, which is awesome too. This pattern is worked from the head to the body in one piece, and then this butt part where the feathers and, you know, whatever that would be called, is worked in a separate piece, and then you sew it onto the body, and then the beak is worked separately, the legs are worked separately, the wings are worked separately. So lots of pieces here to sew on. Not a huge fan of that. I am a fan of the fact that once you sew the wings on, you kind of hide this seam from sewing this butt area onto the flamingo, which is nice. but you can still kind of obviously see that there's a seam here from this not being one piece. I could see this pattern being improved by maybe working from here upwards, and you can do that by kind of adapting Kaylee Crochet's techniques for her Brontosaur pattern on Instagram. I've reviewed that in a separate video, but basically what she does is she makes a hole in the body area where you would like change direction and go up for the neck and head, and she just chains and skips some stitches so that you can go back later once you finish the body and work your crochets directly into those stitches and work upwards, which is really awesome. But I think that could be a really easy way to make this pattern a little less sewing intensive. I've made about 4 of these now. This is the 4th one I've made. The other ones I've made have been in a light pink color. I made some as Christmas presents. I made one as a commission. But I really, really love how these turn out. They're really cute. They take an hour and 21 minutes, so it is a little bit of time, but if you were to adapt the pattern to no sew, or at least low sew, it would make the pattern a little quicker, I can imagine. That being said, I would also give this pattern 3.5 stars out of 5. Next up, we have a really familiar pattern to everybody. These are the chickens that I sell at my markets that do so well. This pattern is by DIY Fluffies. They also have a YouTube video on how to make this pattern, which is awesome. This pattern is kind of high sew as well, except the body's all worked into one piece, so that's a good sign. However, the beak, the cob, or the comb, or whatever she calls it, I kind of use those two interchangeably, and the wings are all sewn on separately. This takes probably about 45 minutes to make. I wrote down 30 minutes. I don't think that's right. There's a lot of sewing involved, so I think it is actually closer to 45 minutes than it is to 30 minutes. I know there's a lot of sewing involved, and usually that's a big downer for most people trying to make market prep patterns really quickly, but this one is a very, very popular item in my store, so I will rate it a little more highly because of that. People really like these chickens, so I'm gonna rate this 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, we have the Chubby Penguin by Rose and Lily Amigurumi. I actually have 2 of her patterns in this review video, so we're gonna start with this one and then we'll get into the next one. This pattern takes about an hour and 12 minutes to work up. It can be a little bit faster depending on how much you work through color changes and how quickly you work through color changes. I don't do a lot of color changes in a lot of my crochet projects, so that takes me a little longer, especially since I'm still trying to figure out if it's better to pick up the color all around and just hide it, or if you should like cut off and reattach every time you do a color change. I think the picking it up and keeping it with your yarn the whole time you work around makes for a thicker finish, but it also wastes a lot of yarn. But if I were to cut yarn and reattach every time, that adds a lot more time to the overall project. So I don't know how I'm gonna approach this yet, but for this one in particular, I picked up the yarn and kept it all the way around. What I really like about this pattern is the feet and the wings are the same pattern, you just sew them on in separate places. And also he stands up really nice. Let's see if I can get him to stand on the first try. Yep, he stands up perfectly, and he's really cute. He's a cute little baby penguin. He's really adorable. The only thing about her pattern that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me is once you get to row 14 through 16, that's where you kind of see this indent here where the orange comes in a little. She only does that on one side, and the other side kind of just keeps going straight down. So I ended up altering that when I got to that part of the pattern and just I made it symmetrical instead of asymmetrical as it is in her pattern. You can't really tell that I did that now that I'm looking at it because of this color change here. It's kind of like just rough and jagged looking. But in the past when I've done this and I cut the yarn that I'm changing to, you don't see this kind of jagged edge as much. Maybe that's another pro to the cut method instead of the carry it around method. But yeah, I really, really like this pattern. It's quick, it's easy, it makes a really, really cute end product, so I would give it 4 stars out of 5. Next up, also from Rose and Lily Amigurumi, is this ghost pattern. This is a no-sew ghost. I really like this pattern. I used this for my peanut festival market, as well as I brought some to my Christmas market. for Christmas in Crockett, and I sold these for $10 each. I still have this one left over. I think this is the last one I have, so just a good opportunity to share it in this Pinterest review video. These take 30 minutes because they're no-sew, they work up really quickly. These frills that make the bottom of the ghost are worked into the front loops of this row here, and then you close it up using the back loops of that same row. So it's really awesome and easy to make. These are bobble stitches as the arms, as you can probably tell, so very quick no-sew project. And I just love how easy it was. It's super beginner friendly as long as you know what a bobble stitch is, a front loop stitch, a back loop stitch. Very easy pattern for anybody working on amigurumi for the first time. And for both this pattern and the penguin pattern, Rose and Lily Amigurumi also offers video tutorials in case you're a visual learner and need to learn how to do the pattern that way. So this is another 4-star pattern. So yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below what your favorite pattern that I tested here was, and let me know what patterns you're gonna try for yourself. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of these. I try to do these pretty often. I know people really want somebody out there to kind of review these patterns so that they would know if it is actually worth making them, instead of like halfway through making a pattern thinking to yourself, why did I even start this project? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next week.